Hello there friends and welcome. For today's Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader Guide we have everything about faction management. Knowing how to properly handle each faction in the game is very important because this is where you can actually find and acquire some of the strongest items in the whole game, for all types of builds, including everyone's favorite power armors. The good thing is nowadays, as you can see here, you can actually maximize almost all factions in just one run, if not all of them even with proper management. So let us dive right into it, but first with the basic mechanics behind how the factions work. Each faction will be unlocked by speaking with the corresponding NPC. You can check them all at the bottom here, and they mostly all come from Footfall, the first planet you visit at the second act. But even in Chapter 1, as I'll soon explain, you can already unlock a few of them. Now, getting faction items works in a very different way than in most other RPGs. You will be able to essentially acquire any of the faction items pretty much for free, so long as you meet two thresholds. The first is faction reputation, and the second, profit factor. And each item, of course, will have both a different rank and profit factor requirement. For example, with the DRUSIANS faction here, even though I have enough profit factor to buy pretty much everything, as the highest item is only 101, because my character only has 11 faction rank with them, I cannot acquire any of the level 12 plus faction rank items. Meanwhile, for the Explorators faction here, because I have enough faction reputation and profit factor, I can simply get everything I want by just clicking on it. Once again, you don't have to pay for it, unlike other RPGs. Or double click because it makes it faster. And there we go, we already have all the items now. Now let's cover what these stats actually represent and how to increase them. First with faction reputation. This is mostly increased through cargo. That is, you'll sell the cargo to the faction in return for reputation points. As far as generic cargo like uniform, armor kits, provisions, fuel and so on, all factions will both accept them and also value them at the same rate. Except for the Imperial Navy, which is where you'll find ship gear and upgrades. As they only accept cargo you can find through ship battles and only that. Besides that, some factions actually, let's say, compete for cargo, in that the cargo that will provide you the highest amounts of reputation will, let's say, be shared between both. For example, DRUSIANS value holy gifts, the highest of them all. The same for the Explorators faction. Meanwhile, KASBALLICA mission and the Fellowship of the Void don't care about holy gifts at all. You can't even sell them that. Rather, it's all about heretic trophies as the most valuable cargo, the same for Xeno artifacts. Now, how to actually get cargo? Most of it is found through exploration. Whenever you loot some chests, they'll have items that are automatically treated as cargo. And besides that, you can also individually turn usable items you find into more cargo, each of a different type. And it's important to note that every item has a different value as far as cargo. Important because when you hit 100%, that is when you create a new cargo of the same type. For example, if I start turning all my armors here into cargo, once I get 100%, it will become a new armor kit that I can trade with whatever faction. And as far as the difference between the green and red ones, well, the red ones aren't full yet, so everything is below 100%. Which means, of course, you can't trade them with any faction. And you can just click on the Select Tradable option here, so that everything that the faction accepts will be automatically sold when traded. Besides normal exploration when opening chests, most of your cargo will come by converting gear into that. Especially the generic sort of gear that, let's say, are pretty much trash items, but enemies are always dropping them, like normal melee weapons for enemies. Plus, you can even do it automatically by right-clicking and picking the Always At You Cargo Zone option. So whenever we find new items of the same type now, they'll be instantly converted into cargo, which helps a lot for all the trash items you loot from enemies. And if you click on an item by mistake, well, you can always turn it back into gear by going to the cargo tab here. One type of cargo is pretty important, which is Mechanicus creations, because it's very easy to get a lot of it by converting many consumables you'll find in the game, such as healing kits and all sorts of buffing items. I know it's hard to let go of a few items, I mean I love hoarding items in RPGs, but if you aren't really using them in battle, I mean I never use any consumable outside of Curager medikits past chapter 1, there's no point in hoarding them until the final battle of the game where they'll just be collecting dust. So feel free to turn them into Mechanicus creations. For example, the useless healing kits here, who cares about healing in battle? I also don't use grenades, but they can be fun depending on your build. But anyways, just turn them all into cargo, more fun, more faction reputation, and great items. What this means is you can of course save other generic resources for Drusians and Fellowship of the Void. Leave Mechanicus creations for these two factions I just mentioned. Besides trading cargo and turning items into cargo, the easiest way of faction reputation is through some colony events, especially the last one from Dargona's, Librarium, because it provides a tremendous plus 20,000 reputation increase for KASBALLICA mission, and the last one from Kiava Gama as a 5th-tier project called Sky Barrier, which is the same but for the Explorators faction. Once again, the factions that actually buy Mechanicus creations. So it's a lot easier to increase reputation for them than Drusians and Fellowship of the Void. Meanwhile, for Navy reputation, you also have the Shield of the Emperor and the Adeptus Arbites projects from Dargonas for a very nice boost even before you have to do a single ship battle, for great ship upgrades of course. And well, I've already covered the best projects in my updated colony management guide, you can check to the side here. Anyways, now let's cover Profit Factor. Most of it will come from colony management. As you can see, we have a lot of colony projects here, increasing it by enormous amounts. Besides that, another easy way is giving data from planets you explore to the Opticon NPC at Footfall for a lot of +1s. Honestly, you don't really need to obsess over Profit Factor, because you'll just increase it naturally through the game. There's only 2 exceptions, because as far as reductions, every mercenary you recruit will reduce it by -1. The same for respeccing your character after enough respecs. The thing is, unless you are respeccing characters 50+ times, the same for recruiting mercenaries, which is kinda unnecessary, you will always have enough Profit Factor. Especially as the highest tier of items usually only cost around 100 Profit Factor, or for the priciest ones, around 160. So very easy to min-max. Reputation not so much, which is why I provided you with all those nice tips. Now that we know the basic mechanics behind faction and faction reputation, let's cover the best items for each faction, starting with Act 1 options. The reason I'm doing this is because, unfortunately, while you already meet some factions during Act 1, the items they have there will disappear once you enter the second chapter, which means you can only pick them during Act 1. While they might not be the best in slot, they are good enough to last you the whole game. First, let's cover the Act 1 Fellowship of the Void items, easily found by just going to the Thunderfang merchant vessel as early as the game begins. Even at the very beginning of the game, with 0 faction reputation, you can already buy a Flamer, which is nice, also the Camouflage Robe, great for any ranged character early game, as to reduce the enemy's dodge by attacking, and even a decent enough heavy armor, which will be a minor upgrade over Abelard's starting heavy armor. After that you have the War World Origin Fencing Body Glove, which is a great option for dodge and agility focused tanks early in the game. But the best options only come at rank 3. First with the Pneumo Boots, an amazing item for any warrior, as it reduces the cost of your charge ability by -1 AP, so it only costs 1 AP now. Great of course because you can charge to move and deal damage and still attack in the same turn. All of this will only cost 2 AP now. Besides that, another amazing option is the Medal of Alacrity, actually one of the best in slot talismans for the officer class. Whenever you use one of your most powerful abilities, bring it down, to provide an ally with an extra turn the first time in combat, that ally will get +1 additional action points for 3, which of course is much better than just 2 points. Now do note that the priciest item in Act 1, the Medal of Alacrity, we just covered, requires 20 profit factor, but this is easily achievable if you min-max your profit factor there, so long as you don't recruit more than 2 mercenaries, which is good enough because you can still have a full party with that. Now what about the best Explorators faction items in Act 1? You can unlock this by talking with the Tech Priest NPC at the government bunker in Rykard Minoris. There's a lot of nice stuff here as well. First with the Psychic Body Glove, an amazing light armor for Psychers, for immunity to the first critical hit you take in combat, and even extra dodge scaling based on Psi rating. Besides that, the Stabilizing Bracers are amazing for the Soldier class, as whenever you use one of your best abilities, Run and Gun, you'll also get extra flat damage based on your agility bonus. You can also get a plasma pistol even early, by just buying it from the Explorators, great for Pascal. Besides that, the first aid manual is amazing, by reducing the cost of medikits in combat. Besides that, one of the best in-slot accessories for a lot of damage dealers is the Metronome. So long as you don't move in your turn, you'll get a +10 bonus to all stats in your next turn. Amazing for combining with extra turns provided by an officer ally, so it's very easy to proc this even at the start of battle. Besides that, the modified laser gun is a good enough burst weapon option early, because of decent rate of fire, decent base damage, and huge dodge reduction. Lastly, the best heavy armor for Act 1 is the Stormtrooper Carapace. You can also buy from this faction. But honestly, it's mostly about the Metronome here. Now let's cover the best Act 2 Plus items for each faction. First, let's start with the DRUSIANS faction. Not really one of my favorites because I think they're kinda front-loaded as far as good items. The last ones aren't really that amazing. And by the way, for most factions, you'll only have around up to ranks 15 or 16 in the second chapter, but later, for chapter 4, the item list will be upgraded with the later ranks and even more items. Anyways, the Imperium Scroll is pretty good for DRUSIANS, as far as a nice bonus to lore Imperium for whatever ally is focusing into it. But one of the ultimate items in the game is actually the Sanctified Staff. I've already covered it in my Psyker God build, but essentially your Emperor's Wrath area of effect power is the strongest nuke in the game, because its damage will be tied to your character's Psyker Staff power level. But the thing is, for the Sanctified Staff, its power level is not static at all, it's actually equal to your resolve, something extremely easy to increase in battle through buffs. You can easily have higher than 100, which of course is how you get even higher than 20,000 damage as area of effect through the Sanctified Staff. Plus the bonuses to stats are also great, and it even has amazing defensive properties as well, because whenever you use Emperor's Wrath, you even get additional armor percentage that is based on your resolve. Definitely a must-have for any Psyker build that wants heavy damage, including officer Psykers who wouldn't really have that many offensive options otherwise. Right at rank 3 we also have another amazing weapon, the Heavy Bolter. This is pretty much the best choice for burst characters until Act 4. It has great rate of fire and decent enough damage, plus amazing armor penetration and high ammo capacity. Amazing for Argenta, of course, as a burst weapon user. It is a heavy weapon, so be careful because it does have a strength requirement. Besides that, at rank 5, the Death World Origin Enforcer Light Carapace is a pretty nice armor for any agility-focused character, or a dodge tank. Then right at rank 7 you have one of the best helmets for Psykers and Navigators, the Dark Visionary Hood, which increases the character's willpower by +10, their most important stat, and even an extra 15% damage bonus to Psychic and Navigator powers. Besides that, you can also find your first chainsaw here, the Rusty Chainsaw. Chainsaw type weapons are new with the Void Shadows DLC, so in case you don't have it, well, either you don't have the DLC or you forgot to turn it on. Anyways, I already mentioned why chainsaw weapons are so good in my Abelard build, but it's mainly because they hit multiple times per single attack, and every damage boost you'll have will be added individually to each of the multi-hitting attacks. for loads of damage. Besides that, at rank 8 we have an amazing light armor, the Spinner's Breastplate, also added by the DLC. The plus 15 toughness bonus is nice for extra HP, the same for extra dodge. Even better for agility tanks like Kibela, the Blade Dancer companion. The Executioner gloves at rank 13 can also be good for, well, Executioner class characters of course, as it will increase the damage of your dot effects based on your Medicae of your Where It Hurts ability. Now let's get into the best Act 4 plus items for the Drusians faction, starting with the Psi Focus at rank 18, an amazing accessory for any fighter mage. It will increase the damage of all of your melee attacks by a huge warp amount based on your character's Psi rating, which at this point can of course be 5, 7 plus even, so that's a lot of extra flat damage you're adding, which is always welcome. The debuff whenever you're hit with a critical hit doesn't matter at all, because with this you're just annihilating every enemy before they can ever attack you. Besides that, at rank 20, we have the Nose on Weakness, an amazing accessory for any assassin character. It will add a huge source of extra flat damage to your direct damage, and assassins are all about causing direct damage. It might seem low here, but that's because it's based on your lethality, and at this point, your assassins can definitely have, 300 plus easily, since lethality is directly tied to their dodge. The bonus will even be doubled whenever you trigger an opening. Once again, an assassin exclusive mechanic. Now, as you might have noticed, the Drusians faction does have some unique gear for Ulfar, the Space Marine companion, such as the Virtue of Contempt as a helmet, or the Crusade Plate helmet. Although I wouldn't really bother with them, besides Virtue of Contempt, if you're going with Flamers, because the inability of performing critical hits with Crusade Plate helmet is really bad. Anyways, at rank 22 you can get the improved Chainsaw. Chainsaws are as always godly, and this has 4 strikes, a decent enough amount, per every single attack. The Void Veteran Boots can also help melee characters like warriors, because whenever you kill an enemy with your melee attack, you immediately get +1 use of the charge ability, which is great, costing 0 AP for free. Even if you don't have charge, so you aren't a warrior, you'll still get this, so great for melee overall. Rank 24 means the Triumph of Faith sword. It is one hand that has amazing armor penetration 50% and even ignores deflection, something godly. For rank 25 we have the Commander's Chrono, an accessory that always lets the character act first in combat. Great because initiative is super random in this game, even if you are min-maxing agility. Rank 28 means the Righteous Justice Greatsword, probably the best greatsword in the game. That is even better when your character has enough ranks into the Dogmatic Alignment. If you are, for example, a Fanatic, it will ignore the dodge of Xenos, Demons, and Psychers, also their deflection and their armor, so you essentially melt them like butter, because they'll be drained of all defenses instantly. We also have a pretty nice power armor at the last rank, the Dragon Scale Power Armor, which is pretty much an unique power armor option for Pascal, because he's the only one with the Reject the Flesh feature. It's great for extra offenses, as once per round, Pascal will get more AP and MP whenever he kills an enemy. Now let's cover the best gear for the Explorators faction. Right at rank 5, the Chirurgeon's Manual can be good enough for Blade Dancers or Executioners, because they are classes that gain bonuses based on your Medicae, and this of course will increase that as an accessory slot. At rank 7, the Portative Manipulator can also help characters, especially snipers, by reducing the cost of your reload action. Meanwhile, we have a lot of Omniscient axes here, like the first one, the Seer Delphine Pattern, which can help Pascal, as he's pretty much the only character that can equip them, if you want to go with a more melee-focused Pascal, of course. Now, the absolute must-have item from Explorators as early as the 2nd chapter, something you should definitely rush for, is the Invigorating Resolve Talisman at 12 reputation. Whenever the wearer or any ally in a 2-cell radius around them gains momentum, everyone will also get an equal amount of temporary wounds. Amazing because, as I've already explained in my other builds, it's very easy to generate momentum by buffing Resolve, and with this alone it means all of your characters can start even outside of cover, so long as they're near each other. And at the very first turn of battle, you can already have, 40, 50 plus temporary hit points, which means even if they get hit despite not being tanks, they'll barely take any damage. And as far as the heavy plasma gun, well, this is also the faction for plasma weapons, in case you want to equip your Pascal with them. At rank 13, the Slick Body Glove is a good enough option for Cassia, by virtue of increasing her dodge against enemies with lower perception than her, and that's pretty much any enemy in the game, plus even more dodge against ranged attacks. Then at rank 16 we have the Improved Injector, a very powerful accessory if you like to use combat stimulants to buff your characters, as it reduces the first use per turn to only 0 AP, so nothing, it's for free. Then at 17 we have one of the best ultimate sniper rifles for the second chapter, the Deadly Repeater. This will provide your character with a 30% chance of getting one more attack action after a kill. Amazing. Then at rank 19 we have the Heavy Emergency Cutter, the best chainsaw for the second chapter. It has 4 built-in attacks in one and even constantly increases your critical damage whenever you attack, by stacking amounts until the end of combat. It's amazing. Honestly the best X2 weapon even, when all things are considered now. As you can see, because of how many powerful items the Explorators faction has, even right at the second act, it's one of the reasons I really like increasing its reputation as early as possible. But of course, starting from Act 4 we'll have even more nice gear, so let's cover that now. The Omniscient Holy Symbol is amazing for Pascal, as it increases his most important skills, stack use and logic, plus even lets you reroll any failed stack use or logic skill test once. Besides that, you have the Skitari Ranger Armor, which is great for Pascal, for both defenses and offenses, as first, it increases his armor percentage based on tech use, his most important and powerful skill, and reduces the AP cost of reloading weapons. Speaking about Pascal, you can also find one of the best plasma rifles here, the Ancient Plasma Rifle, at rank 27, which deals additional flat damage, something very good, based on your intelligence modifier. Also a height stat for Pascal. There's also some options for Ulfr the Space Marine here, like the Holy Power Armor at rank 28, which honestly isn't really that good. Also flamers for him, like the Astartes flamers. This one, however, can be good enough by virtue of high base flamer damage. Then at rank 29 we have the LD Pattern Chainsaw. Actually my favorite chainsaw in the game because it does have a tremendous amount of multi-hits per single attack, 5, which is the highest of them all, I believe. Followed by the Breacher Surgeon's Armor, a pretty good medium armor that will highly increase your character's temporary wounds based on your Iconoclast rank, and also armor percentage based on persuasion. Then rank 30 means the Vivisector's Visor, an amazing helmet for any assassin, by virtue of highly increasing your damage whenever hitting an opening. Level 31 has an amazing accessory for Elite, the Eldari Elf Companion, the Elder Flow Talisman. It will make her first attack in the first round cost 0 AP, plus increase your damage based on exploits. Rank 34 means the Portable Deflector, which is pretty good for dodging attacks, as you'll always dodge the first hit from each attacker. But rank 35 is when you can find one of the ultimate heavy armors in the game, which will be Abelard's best friend, the War World Origin Tempestus Elite Carapace, as it will increase Abelard's deflection, so damage reduction, by an enormous amount based on his Carouse skill. At this point, it can definitely be higher than 40, 50 even, it's that godly. Rank 36 also means another busted good item, the Litany of Empyrean Fury. Every psychic or navigator power used by allies of whoever is equipped with this will deal additional direct damage to all enemies in combat. It's absurd. Equal to your allies' resolve, which at this point can be 50, 100 plus easily. The only downside is it requires Fanatic as far as dogmatic alignment. The good thing is, nowadays, even if your main character is not dogmatic, Kibela, the new Blade Dancer companion, can be made to have 4 ranks of dogmatic, enough to qualify for this, depending on the options you pick during her personal quests. Well, the options that push her towards serving the Emperor further. And trust me, this item is game-breaking. I mean, at this point you don't need it, but it's hilarious watching it in action. The last great item for the Explorators faction is the Ghost Helm at rank 38. Also the costliest item in the game, I believe, as far as profit factor. It lets you use your willpower for dodge tests instead of agility, so great for psychers, especially because of its second benefit. Whenever you dodge an attack, you'll get +1 stacking psi rating until the end of combat. Great because, well, you can always attack your character with your allies, like let's say, use a burst attack from a friendly ally, most of the attacks, if not all of them, will miss, and then you'll get huge extra psi rating, for free. Now let's cover the best KASBALLICA mission faction items. It is kinda hard to get most of them early, because they require a lot of ranks, also a lot of profit factor. Most importantly, KASBALLICA mission is probably the slowest faction when it comes to reputation growth. Just the first rank requires close to 7,000 faction reputation, and the best cargo to raise your reputation with them, Xenos artifacts, only comes at chapter 3, well, as far as huge amounts anyways, so chances are for most of these items, you'll only be getting them at Act 4+. But even then, you still have a few good options early, such as the Peripheral Visor, which doesn't require any faction rank at all. It is the must-have for the Master Tactician class. Whenever you spend 10 stacks of Tactical Advantage, you'll gain +1 stacking Resolve. Once again, it's very easy to increase Resolve to maximum amounts. The Commissar boots can be good as well, at least for buffing characters, as they let you increase both your movement and that of an ally you buff, by a decent enough amount, based on your fellowship, the most important stat for any officer. Then at rank 4 we have the Anatomist's Amulet, a must-have pick for any Executioner. I've already explained in my main Executioner build why having extra damage potential to your damage over time effects is so good. So if you wanna know, just check that out, but that is how you blow up the entire enemy army in just one move. Meanwhile, for rank 5 we have the Outcast's Visor, a must-have item for everyone's favorite Xenos companion, Erlit, the Eldari elf. Whenever she kills a target with a single ranged attack for the first time in combat, she'll immediately get an additional attack. Rank 7 meanwhile means the ultimate heavy armor for any Psyker character, the Psyker's Breastplate. I've also already covered it in my Psyker guides, especially for Idira, but essentially whenever you trigger a Psychic Phenomena or Perils of the Warp, you'll get stacking bonuses to psi rating until the end of combat, which is how our dear Idira can have even higher than 100 psi rating eventually. Just remember, it is heavy armor, so will require you to get the feat for any Psyker character. And well, rank 7 is quite stacked because it also means an amazing weapon, the Calibrated Heavy Stubber. Another amazing burst weapon because it is the one with the highest rate of fire until much later, even if the base damage is low. Plus of course, enormous ammo capacity. Rank 8 is amazing as well because we get the Warp Guide staff for Cassia, one of the best buffing staffs. First because it has 9 infusing, so whenever casting any Navigator power to buff allies, they'll get +9 stacking to their stats, amazing. Even higher movement points based on Cassia's perception. And speaking about Cassia, rank 10 means the best talisman for her, the Vortex Pendant, which provides Cassia with an additional +5 willpower stacking until the end of battle whenever she affects an ally with an ability, and Cassia excels at buffing. But of course you can also use this for Psyker buffer party members. Meanwhile, rank 12 means the Blade Dancer's Mantle, the ultimate cloak for any Blade Dancer character, as it will highly increase the damage of your most spammable ability Death from Above by enormous amounts based on your resolve. Once again, extremely easy to increase for even higher than 300, which is of course hilariously broken. Then for rank 15 we have the Warp Surge Brooch. Amazing for any fighter mage type of character, so a fighter psyker, as in the first round of combat you'll gain a number of additional attacks equal to your psi rating, which at this point can be +5, even higher than let's say +7, and that's a lot of extra attacks. Then at rank 16 we have one of the best staffs for Cassia, this time for extra damage, the Red Crystal Staff. It has the highest devastating property possible for more damage on your spells, as navigator powers, and even reduces the cost of each offensive navigator power you cast by -1 AP each turn, which is also great. So her main power, Lidless Stare, will only cost 1 AP. And of course, because of Devastating, you can cast it again on the same turn with increased damage. Now, as far as the Act 4 plus KASBALLICA faction items, a lot of gear unique to Xenos allies can be found here, like the Blackheart Cabal Origin Kabbalit armor. Most importantly, the Slayer's Delight gloves, which is amazing for Mara's Eye, because whenever he hits an enemy with a single target two-handed attack, the attack will deal enormous amounts of extra flat damage based on strength modifier. So by just having this, your Mara's Eye can become a one-shot machine. The Inquisitor's Badge of Office at rank 22 can also be nice, so you'll always pass any coercion test with a 100% chance. The Tyrant Pistol at rank 24 is unique in that it can inflict almost all damage over time effects for every attack. Demolitionist Goggles are also nice for rerolling demolition tests, using agility instead. And later at rank 32 we have the Armor Piercing Ammo accessory, which lets your single shot and deadeye shot attacks reduce the enemy's deflection by damage dealt, which, well, will pretty much melt their deflection to 0 with just one attack instantly. Now let's cover the best Fellowship of the Void items. Another one of my favorite factions, just like Explorators, because you have many powerful items spread through multiple ranks. Well, if you are a Pyropsyker, you can use the Staff of Endless Flame, which will be an upgrade over your starter Pyromancer staff you get at Act 1. The biggest upgrade, however, comes at rank 10, the Tactical Backpack, godly for any burst character like Argenta, because, well, it increases your rate of fire with any burst weapon by +1. Then we also have the Death World Origin Armored Body Glove, another amazing light armor option. But rank 18 is when you get a truly OP item, the Grimoire of the Void. This is godly for Cassia the Navigator, as it will increase all of your warp damage, which is her main damage type, by huge flat amounts based on willpower bonus, which of course will always be extremely high for Cassia, much higher than what's displayed here. Trust me, it will make her into even more of a goddess. This also has synergy with my Idira build, who excels at triggering psychic phenomena for higher psi rating, because, well, it increases the chances of you doing just that by 15%. Now, for Act 4 plus Fellowship of the Void best gear, we have first the Astronomicon Regalia, an amazing buffing staff for Cassia the Navigator. First, your buffing navigator powers will grant allies +1 additional AP, once. Then it also has Standing Fusing, one of the highest in the game for huge bonuses to all ally stats, including Cassia herself. Even Devastating as well, so it kinda works as both a buffing and also offensive staff. Rank 27 means access to Thought Guide, one of the best staffs in the game for buffing. It does require the Telepath School, but the effect is really good. So perfect for Idira, who already starts as a Telepath, as all of your allies affected by your psychic powers will get a stacking amount of extra resolve based on your willpower bonus for 1 round. Once again, it stacks per use, and can provide enormous amounts of extra resolve during battle. Then at rank 30 we have the Navy Breacher Boots, which are amazing for Flamer or Melta focused characters, and I'll actually post a build for that soon enough for the main character or a mercenary. Whenever your area attack damages at least 2 enemies that are close enough, for the first time in a round, you'll immediately get +2 AP and the attack will not count against the attack limit. The downside of immobilizing you doesn't really matter. You can also go for the Abyss Spinner Gloves at the same rank, that have the decent enough benefit of increasing your allies' armor penetration and critical damage based on your own, whenever they are buffed by your abilities. Then you also have the Blaine's Clone Field accessory at rank 33, which always lets you reroll failed parry tests, once or even twice when dual wielding. It's just that at this point, I can't really see enemies attacking you ever, at least not with my builds, so Act 4 plus. Rank 35, on the other hand, means one of the best talismans for Psykers, the Star Mist Scarf, which increases your Psi rating by an extra +2. Also even higher dodge if you aren't wearing any armor. Rank 36 on the other hand is the ultimate gloves for burst characters, the compensator gloves. First, it lets you fully ignore weapon recoil, which is great for ensuring your burst attacks hit the designated targets. But most importantly, it will increase your rate of fire by the most absurdly broken amount. A percentage based on half your ballistic skill, which is super easy to buff in battle. Yes, it is that overpowered, exactly how it sounds. Speaking about OP Burst, rank 37 for Fellowship of the Void, the last rank, is when we can find the ultimate burst weapon in the game, the improved Heavy Bolter. Because its unique property means every kill with this weapon will increase its rate of fire by +1. This has extreme synergy with the soldier ability that doubles rate of fire because it will work even after you use it. Plus, of course, the damage is good enough. But this is the best way of having, let's say, 40 plus rate of fire while still retaining good enough damage. Now, as far as the Imperial Navy faction, there's not much of a point into covering it all because you can always buy everything. And for ship combat, well, it's always a matter of getting the ones that have the highest stats. Plus, I'll also cover this more in depth in my updated ship combat guide coming soon. Well, alright friends, so this was it for our best factions and faction management guide for the best items. If you found this video useful, as always, please remember to like, subscribe, and also consider becoming a channel member if you can. I really appreciate your support. Thank you for watching, and see you next time, friends.